Okay, so I'll share my PowerPoint and you let me know if you can see my PowerPoint. Okay, so like I mentioned, my name is Omolo Cliff Oganda. I'll be your host for this series, dubbed Azure Infrastructure as Code. So what we're doing, we're basically automating infrastructure for scalability and consistency. So today in this meeting, I have my co-host, that is Dennis Kathuri. Dennis Kathuri, you can introduce yourself, and then also you can go ahead and read the code of conduct.
Okay, just a minute. Thank you, Omoro. My name is Dennis Washira. I hope I'm audible.
Yeah, sure.
My name is Dennis Washira. I'm a computer science student from Kirinyaga University, a Microsoft student ambassador, and happy to be on this second event of Azure as an infrastructure. I want you to welcome you and also to keep or to remind you about our code of conduct. By our conduct means like you need to respect others and their opinions. Also use an inclusive language and also create an environment where everyone feels comfortable to ask any question. I welcome you all for this second event, and I hope you learn something out of it. Back to you, Omol.
Okay, so thank you so much, Dennis. And before I got into the agenda of the day, I just want to mention that we have a community named Kenya Data Platform User Group. So in this community, we host tech events, one of them being the one that we're doing today, that is managing your infrastructure as code. We also have Azure Fundamentals. We have Cosmos DB, C#, and many, many more technologies. So if you've not been part of our community, you can actually join using the link that was shared for this event. So by joining, you'll get updated on any event. Once you get an event, you automatically get a notification that an event has been scheduled and you can actually reserve your spot. So we usually tackle a lot of things, and we're having events every Wednesday, which is today, and also on a Saturday. So for example, on Saturday, we'll be having the TypeScript and Cosmos DB session ongoing. So welcome everybody to Kenya Data Platform User Group community. And so we can start. So before we start, I can just maybe remind us of what we talked about last time. So last time we introduced what infrastructure as code is. We looked into the advantages or the reasons why any company or an individual will choose to manage their infrastructure using code, opposed to the traditional way that was manual, tiresome, and even time consuming. We also looked into the tools that we have that can help us implement infrastructure as code, where we mentioned ARM templates, we mentioned Bicep, we mentioned Terraform, we mentioned CloudFormation, Ansible, and Chef. Going forward, we also looked into the formats or the languages that you can use when writing these templates or Bicep files, where we understood that for the Bicep, it's declarative, which means you tell us the desired end state. You don't tell us the procedure to go through to get the desired end state. And for the ARM templates, we said it is imperative because you have to define the exact processes that has to be taken to achieve the desired end state. And we came to a conclusion that Bicep is quite much easier to write, readable, and even easy to maintain because it is declarative. The code is short and concise, since I'm only telling you what you want, not how to get what I want. So we went ahead and also looked into a sample the structure of an ARM template. And that is what has brought us today to look into Bicep. Now, Bicep is what we are going to focus on for the major part of our events. But before we understand Bicep, we need to understand ARM templates. Why? Because I've mentioned under the hood, even bicep will be transpiled back to ARM templates. Why? Because ARM templates is what the Azure environment understands, because it's responsible for actually routing to the various requests to the Azure services that are responsible for giving you any resource that you want. So today, we are going to focus and look into what is an ARM template that will later transpile into bicep. And with the help of Visual Studio Code extensions and Visual Studio Code, we are going to write our first ARM template and actually see how we can deploy it to Cloud Azure. So this slide is just a continuation of what I had last time. So I'll just scroll through to take us to where we should be today. So my current slide reads writing your first ARM template and bicep file. Please react if you can see that's on your screen so that I can know you're on the same page. Fantastic. That's amazing. So that is our focus for today. And now let's just continue. So what's the agenda of the day? One, we are going to write our first ARM template. We are going to use Visual Studio Code to write that valid ARM template. And we are going to understand why we need Visual Studio Code while writing these templates. Then we are going to deploy that template to Azure Portal and using Azure Portal. And finally, if we have time, we're going to look into creating a visual representation of your template. So basically that's the agenda of today, because jumping straight into bicep kind of a way will be easier for you, but you won't have the solid understanding of what goes on under the hood. It's more like you haven't gone through JavaScript, you jump into React, which is very okay because you can still write React and understand React, but you'll have problems because to write React, you need some basics of JavaScript or TypeScript. So this is the analogy that is here in bicep and ARM templates. To understand why you'll appreciate bicep, you need to first understand ARM templates. So I hope this makes sense. Now that you are writing ARM templates, you should understand that how are ARM templates written. So ARM templates are written in JSON docs. Now, when I mention JSON, I am somehow sure that most of us have heard the term JSON before, or even if you are hearing about JSON today, no problem, we'll get to explain and understand what exactly is JSON document, or what we call JavaScript object notation. And then to write the ARM templates, we are going to need a powerful text editor like VS Code. And why do we need VS Code? Because for us to actually structure it well, the JSON document, and even the formatting, we need a powerful text editor like VS Code. And apart from that, we need that editor because ARM templates and bicep, they have extensions that are made by Microsoft that will help you quickly bootstrap any ARM templates or bicep file that you want. In a way, they make it easier for you to write quickly. Also, you need to understand that to write a template, you need to be familiar with the resource you want to create. Yeah, so why do you need to know the resource you want to create? This is because each resource has its own properties that you need to define in your ARM template. So a storage resource or account will have different properties compared to something like a compute, which is a virtual machine. So every time you are trying to actually write a template to deploy a specific resource, you need to understand which properties do you need for this particular resource. And that is why you need to understand and be familiar with the resource that you want to deploy using ARM templates. And also, always remember to use Microsoft documents as a reference for creating your template. So Microsoft has done it so well. They have a very good documentation that you can always refer to. For example, if you want to deploy or even, write the template for deploying a virtual machine or a storage account, when you go to the docs, you will see all the properties, the API versions, I mean, all the properties, even the ones that are optional and the ones that are a must, you'll be able to see them from the documentation. So it's really important to always reference to the Microsoft Docs to actually get to understand, for the resource I'm trying to deploy, which properties do I need. Now, we have some points to note that Azure Templates section contains all list of resource types you can deploy using Azure Resource Manager or ARM. So this template section, I'm going to show you a link that will take you straight to that template section. So if you see a resource on that template section, that confirms to you that all that resources that you see there can be automated by using ARM templates to define the structure, the properties, and how they will be deployed to Azure. Also, from that actual documentation, you'll also find the allowed properties for each resource type. A while ago, I just mentioned that, remember, we don't have the same properties for each resource. Each resource has its own unique properties, and sometimes some are not unique. For example, location. You can have resources sharing the same location, the same resource group, but then other properties can be different. For example, you can't expect a storage location, storage account, to have something like number of CPUs or even the compute power. But when you go to something like a VM, you need to define the compute power, number of CPUs, and define the networking in that VM. Also, from the documentation, you will know whether they are mandatory or not and the type of each property. So I hope that up to this point, that makes a lot of sense. Now, I mentioned that both Bicep and ARM templates, they all use JSON format. They are all JSON documents, which means it's basically some kind of an object, but this object kind of has properties and the values, like it's in key value pairs. You know how JSON documents are written, right? Again, in this JSON document, you can have nested objects deep inside. So for you to be able to actually write a good JSON document, you need to understand how to work with JSON files. And so what is JSON? So JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. Or in short, it's JSON, like what has been mentioned there. So it's a structured but lightweight text format for describing information. The values of a JSON document object can be either a number, a string, a boolean, a null, array, or object. But take note that null is not the same as zero. Null simply means absence of value. Do not mistake null for zero. So briefly, that is what describes what a JSON file is. Remember, both ARM templates and the Bicep codes files, they all use JSON notation. So even if you've been building an API, we all agree that your data has to be transferred in a JSON format. So it's kind of a structured but lightweight text format for describing information. Also can be used to transfer information over the internet. So that is something that you need to take note of to understand how to write ARM templates, something that we're going to discuss in the upcoming slides. Now, we mentioned earlier that we will need a powerful text editor to help us write JSON documents or objects. Now, the text editor that we are supposed to be using here is Visual Studio Code. Why am I recommending Visual Studio Code? One, ARM templates and Bicep, these are Azure native tools. So by default, we all know that Azure is owned by Microsoft. And so it will be easy to integrate these extensions or to install them on an IDE that is from the parent company. So I am recommending Visual Studio Code because number one, it's open source, it's lightweight, and also it supports these extensions that the two of them, that is Azure Resource Manager templates and also the Bicep extension. So we are going to install that extension, and later on, you're going to see how useful this extension can be when you are writing your JSON or your ARM templates. Now, once we have our VS Code in place, and we have the extension also installed, Now it's time for you to create your what we call your ARM file, which is basically a .json file. So we are going to create a new folder, launch Visual Studio Code inside that created directory, and then create a file with any name, but with a .json extension. And then you're going to see, just like in HTML, you can use the exclamation mark to, or the emmet to generate for you the boilerplate code. Also, when working with ARM templates, we can use this word here, that is ARM exclamation, to give us like a starting point for our ARM template. So this means that you don't have to write everything from scratch. You can actually bootstrap that boilerplate by just typing ARM. And all this, we are going to look into it practically once we are done. So as you can see, there's a screenshot of what it looks like. So once you install that ARM extension, you'll be able to write ARM in lower caps with an exclamation mark, and that will bootstrap for you a structure or a skeleton from which you can start passing in values for your template. And then if you press enter, you will see what you have on your screen. You see it automatically gives you the schema, the version, and the properties, the top level properties that are expected, like parameters, functions, variables, resources, and outputs. Okay. And then we are also going to explain the structure of ARM. What does each property there do, and why do we need them, and which of these properties are important to us, because we can actually have our template running very well without some of the properties here. Some of them are just there, but there's not a necessity for you to deploy any resource on the cloud. So we're going to look into that. And then to start, we will focus on resources properties and ignore the other 4 properties for now. This is because this event is not a one-time event. And my goal, or our goal as Kenya Data Platform community, is to ensure that by the time that we are calling this event to an end, everyone who has been coming to our sessions can be confident in writing his template, be it ARM, be it Bicep, to be able to manage our whole infrastructure, our whole solution architecture using just code. And for us to achieve that, we need to take this step by step, okay? Building the blocks from the very basics as we advance step by step, going to the top. Remember, it's a step at a time. If you skip one step, you will come back to that step you skipped. So I want us to skip any step, just a step at a time, so that we can have solid understanding of what we expect. And remember, each resource that you're going to define should be a valid JSON object. Remember, it's the entire template is a JSON object. But again, inside the properties of resources, it's more like an array. Inside this array, you still need to have valid JSON objects to define each resource. Remember, your cloud environment can have more than one resource. You can have a VM, virtual networks, storage, web app, static web app, Cosmos DB, and everything. So all this, that is why we have an array for the property, for the values of what we call the resources. So we're going to look into that and see how to write our very, very first resource and deploy it without a sweat, without sweating. Simple. Now, the resource property accepts an array of objects that are used to define the resources that you want to deploy on Azure. Now, you notice how the ARM storage automatically generates the required properties for that resource. Now, this point that is put in quotes, ARM storage, that is also kind of another shortcut that will help you generate. Now, each resource that you deploy, some of them have such kind of emmets completions. So by just typing ARM storage, while our ARM template extension is active, we'll be able to bootstrap an entire storage account with all the properties. And for us, what we need to do just to define like the name, the version, and much more that is expected of us. So that is what you need to understand at that point. And by doing that, it's a congratulations to us. We've actually created our first ARM template. Now you have your ARM template. Well and good. So what's next? What's next is for you to now deploy it to Azure, the actual deployment. And the actual deployment is where it will be now easy. You know, the normal way through which you go to the portal, just browse everything. Now you're just going to upload. We have various ways through which we can actually deploy our template. We can use the Azure portal, which will be our main point of interaction today. And then we can use other tools like the Azure CLI, PowerShell. Also, we can use the Cloud Shell, which is built inside the Azure portal. And yeah, those are the tools that you can use. To build the basics or the ground or the understanding, the foundation, we are going to use the Azure portal today to deploy our very first template. And then later on, we start looking into how we can use the command line interfaces like the Azure CLI, PowerShell, and even the Cloud Shell to help us deploy them. Because in a wide, or let me say, in an industry setting, most of the time you find yourself using the CLI tools, but that is not a must. You have the freedom of choosing what you want to use, but for your convenience, it's up to you to choose. But for today, we want to do it using the Azure portal. Now, one thing that was mentioned earlier before is that for you to actually define your ARM template in a concise and precise manner, you always need to reference from the Azure documentation or Microsoft documentation. And you can see here, like I mentioned, in that documentation, you should be able to see all the resources that are deployable using an ARM template or a bicep file. So I'm going to share with you all this link just right now, and then you can check it later to see all the resources that you can deploy using the ARM template and bicep file. So we are very close to our demo session. So let me just share this. So when you click on that link, you'll be taken to the documentation or the manuals to understand the properties, the API versions, the resources that are available for you by Microsoft that you can actually automate the deployment using the tools that we're discussing today. And then fast forward, we're going to leverage the IntelliSense in VS Code. And this is made possible using the extensions that we have installed, which will help us to add some additional properties. For example, if you want to deploy something like a storage account, you'll want to maybe only restrict HTTP values, HTTPS to be true, which means only connections that are using HTTPS, which is secure, can establish that connection to your storage account. So when now defining these extra values or optional values, now IntelliSense comes into play in that it will try and autocomplete or suggest to you the options that you can have for that particular property. And then finally, what you're going to do is to deploy an ARM template. We are going to deploy it through Azure portal. And just like you can always go to the portal, let's say today I was building a web application, a Node.js or Express application, then I will need an app service. So I go to log into my Azure portal, and then I go to the resources, search for something like app service or a web app, and then I click on create, pass in the details, validate, and then create. Now, in this case, I want you to think of the template as a resource, okay? Now, instead of searching for other resources that we have on Azure, you're going to search for what we call template deployment. In brackets, deploy using writing your first ARM template custom template. So once we locate that on the Azure portal, you're going to see how we can leverage the online text editor. We copy the templates that we have locally on our VS Code and paste it on the online editor, and then we validate Once you validate, the only thing you need to select, you need to select the resource group. Once you select that, it will still validate that to check the name that you provided on the template. Is it colliding or same as a name of a resource that was already deployed earlier or already existing on your platform? For example, if you name your storage account, let's say Kenya Data Platform Storage in your template, and then during validation, Azure realizes that you already have the same storage account with the same name, then that template won't be deployed. So it will tell you there's an error and also point to you where the error is with a specific message. That is very important. So that is some of the things that you need to take care of while deploying your applications using templates. But the good thing is, the more we be doing these sessions, you understand how you can automate even the name, so that if a name already exists, it's a condition that and a function that will generate a new name if the name that was defined already exists. So these templates bicep, they support conditionals or the JavaScript conditions. They also support loops. So you will see the more we go, we'll understand all this. Now, time for demo. Before we go to the demo, do you have any question up to that point from what we've looked into from the slides? Any question? Fantastic. There being no question, I mean, we can now go to the demo part. We see how we're going to install the ARM extension, write our first boilerplate for the ARM template, write our first resource, and then we call it a day. It should be short and to the point. So I hope I'm going to work within the time that we have. So let me share my screen and you let me know if you can see my screen. We shouldn't start this right now. Okay, so can anyone confirm that you can see my screen? Thank you. So let's go ahead and do this. So as I mentioned earlier, we just need to create a folder. So creating a folder, it's up to you to choose the location. So let me do it the manual way. So I'll call this ARM. So once we have the ARM folder here, yeah, here it is. Let me just drag it somewhere here. Oh, it's auto arranging. Okay. So you open that folder, and once you open that folder inside here, you are going to launch your VS Code right inside here. So how I'm going to do that, I'm just have my terminal inside here. By doing this, I will have my terminal opening in the current directory. So let me do that. So you'll have to bear with me. This machine takes a lot of time. So good things take time. So we are on the same page. So once we are here, we want to open our Visual Studio Code right inside this directory. So depending on how you've installed your VS Code, you can just write code space period, and that will launch it in the current directory. Yes, so that's up. So let me just drag it and bring it to our main window. I hope until this point, we are all on the same page. So here we are with our Visual Studio Code. So once you have your Visual Studio Code open, remember I said we need an extension to help us write concise and precise ARM templates. Oh, damn. Okay. Just a minute, guys. Okay, sorry guys for that. It was very important to me. So you need to come to your extensions icon here. And then once you are here, if you have it installed already, you will see your installed extensions from the top. Now, what you need to search for here is Azure Resource Manager. So I'll just come here. Since I have it, I just show a demo. Resource Manager. So if you type Azure Resource Manager, that will bring you a number of options. But what we are interested in is the tag Microsoft right here. So this means that we are getting the extension from the verified publisher, which is Microsoft. So you need to click on that. And you can see actually from the description, language server, editing tools, snippets for Azure Resource Manager, template files. So if you are not having this extension already, you'll have here install. So click on install, and that will have your ARM extension ready. So once you have ARM and you confirm that it's installed, if installed, you should see disable or uninstall. So you can just close that tab or that icon, and then now it's time to create your file from where you're going to write your template. Remember, a point to note, ARM templates are simply JSON objects, and therefore, if you're creating any file, it has to have a JSON extension. The name is up to you to come up with the name, but the extension, you have to make it to be a .json extension. So with that, what we are going to do, click on new file, and then let's give it a name, ARM deploy.json. So you can see even from the icon here, it's a JSON file. So once we have this, now we are ready to start writing our very first template. Remember, like in VS Code or in HTML, every time you want to start an HTML file, you type that, and that will give you some emmet snippets that even you click on tab, will get for you a boilerplate having the head, the body section, the footer section. I mean, the boilerplate, the skeleton that you need, something to start from, okay? Now, we have the same on IRM templates, luckily. So in our slides, I showed you what to do. You need to just type ARM, and then you see what we have here. Once you see we have resource group template, just click on that. And there you go. So basically we have where to start from. Now you see it's actually a valid JSON object, which has properties. We have properties here. One is the schema. So schema, remember, everything we write here must conform to a particular schema defined by Microsoft, okay? The URL you see here will point us to the one that is currently being implemented or being used. And since JSON documents can be very large and sometimes you can't even read them, let me show you how it looks like. And then tell me if you will spend your time to read it. So I'll copy that and then come back on my browser, and then I'll open a new tab. I want to take this very slow. My computer doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't actually embarrass me. So let me click on that new tab. So in this new tab, if I visit that schema URL, you'll be able to see the schema that Microsoft defined for us to use when writing our templates. Oh, sure. So I'll paste that link here and press enter. So you have to do this very slowly, step by step. We can work together. This work with this my machine. So yeah. So you see, this is the schema that we are using, that you have to conform to while writing your templates. Even if you make it pretty, you will take, I don't know how long you will take to understand this object here. So that's just like the schema. So each template will have its own schema, okay? So let's just go back to where we are. Sure. So we have the schema. So here, you don't need to change anything as long as you use that shortcut. Leave it the way it is. So this is the schema that we're using. Also, last release was the 19 April 1st. And then we have content version. Now, this one is up to you, the person writing this template. So for example, remember I told you templates can be versioned. You can have a version today, tomorrow you change by maybe deleting a resource or adding another one, or even modifying the capacities. So version is up to you to version it. You can have version 1.001, version 2, version 3, that way and that way. So it's something that can be versioned. And remember, we can also use Git and GitHub to manage these versions. So that is something that you need to understand. And then we have parameters. So parameters here, to a moment that we will reach where we'll be writing a complete environment for an application, you don't want to repeat yourself by repeating the resource name, repeating the resource group, repeating the virtual networks. You want to have them as parameters so that you only call the name of the parameter when you want to refer to it somewhere. So we also have functions. Remember I told you can have functions that can help you in generating names. So parameters and functions. Then also we have variables. Think of it this way. Today we are deploying 8 vCPUs. Tomorrow we want to deploy 12. Now instead, and this 12 has been referenced several times in our template. Now instead of having to go every point where this number of vCPUs is referenced, we need to have variables and just say number of vCPUs. So next time you're changing something like the number of vCPUs, we only change the variable and that will reflect everywhere. Just think of it like your normal code. You're using a variable as a placeholder, right? To actually manage that value that will be used in more than one place. And then we have the resource. Now, most of your time will go here in resources because we're basically focusing on deploying resources. So much of your time will be spent here. And it's just an array. So as an array here, here's where you define the objects for each resource. And then we have outputs. So outputs here, for example, once you deploy, you want to maybe get some information returned back to you, okay? So once returned back to you, that is everything that you'll define here. As I mentioned, because we're taking this step by step from the very step 1, step 2 going forward, I want us to forget about outputs, variables, function, parameters, and focus on resources for now. Don't worry, we'll all go step by step into variables, function, parameters, and outputs. For today, let's focus on resources right here. Now, on resources here is where now you find the resource that you want to deploy. Remember I said you have to be aware of the resource and very familiar with the resource that you want to apply. Why? For you to know the kind of values that you'll be providing to that resource, okay? The properties that it needs, the optional ones and the ones which are mandatory, right? So most of your time will be spent on resources because that is where will contain the actual resources that you need. So just like we did the ARM exclamation to give us the boilerplate, also in the resources, we can use another shortcut to give us the resource we need. Now today, I want us to think of a company that already has their infrastructure on premise, but there's growing demand and to a point where they are exhausting the capacity that they have for storage. As a result, their solution architecture is recommending at this point, we maybe need to leverage the cloud platform. And so they decide that they want to deploy a storage account. So for this scenario, for this event, we're going to work with that company and help them deploy a storage account. And I mentioned we have a shortcut. So if you come here and just type ARM storage, so just a minute so that it can pick up what I want. Fantastic. Now you see it was so quick. Down here, you could have seen ARM loading the templates, okay? Now you see how now our extension is coming into play. I don't need to know everything. I simply need to just type ARM storage. And once I see that the storage account comes on top, I can click on that, okay? And let's see what happens. Now you see what happens. Now it has generated for me a resource object with the properties that are mandatory for that resource. So we have the name. And take note that by doing that, we have our cursor already highlighting two properties. One is the name, and number two is the display names. Look at here, we have the name highlighted and waiting for us to type something. And then we will also have display name highlighted. So without doing something else, I want us to first give it a name, and that name should be same as the display name, I mean. So what do we do? Backspace and give it a name. So how do we call this today? Let's call it ARM deploy. And you see, this will type it in the name section and also in the tags section to give us display name. Am I still audible?
Yes, Omar.
Okay. Just a minute, I plug in my microphone. I see it's better low.
Cliff, we can't hear you. I don't know what's happened with you.
Oh, Cliff.
Omolo, we can't hear you. You are muted. Not yet. Ah.
Hello, am I audible?
Ah. Yes or more. I think we can hear you now. But
Okay, where did you lost me, guys? I mean, where did I get lost? What I was mentioning.
what at the moment you started plugging your charger, I think.
Oh, was
Yes.
it? Okay. Okay, let me just go through this once again. I mean, I defined the schema, content version, and then we were here. So I think we were at this point, resources, right?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry for that, guys. I didn't understand. I know that I was inaudible. I'm very sorry. So let's continue. So I'll just maybe explain once more what we are doing here. So I mentioned we're going to spend most of our time on resources, okay? Because here is where we want to put a number of resources inside here. And just like we use the ARM exclamation to give us the boilerplate, in the resources part here, you also see what we did. It's something we can redo so that you can. I'm not sure if that you got it clearly. Let me just do it. I said you can just type ARM storage. And that you can see down here, Azure Resource Manager is loading. So once it's loaded, you will see how IntelliSense is coming to play. Like it will, you see, now we have the ARM storage. Remember, our company needs storage account on the cloud. So in this case, we want to deploy a storage account. So when you click on that, we get a this boilerplate I mentioned. By default, you will have two properties selected. One is the name, and one is display name, which is under the tags. So which means, as a good convention, your name should be same as display name. And I said, let's give it a name. By just pressing backspace, we can be able to give the names both to places, that is the name and display name. And the name that we chose today is to use ARM. Okay. Sorry, deploy. Okay, so RM deploy. Now that is okay. Now, if you press tab, that should take you to the next property that you should be providing its value. So if I press tab, see what happens. That should take me, sorry, to the kind. Control Z. That should take us back. Okay. Sorry, that should load. Yeah, there you go. So once we have the ARM deploy, and you also have what we call the display name, the next that you want to choose could be something like the kind here. So kind here, you can have different types of storage accounts. Remember, we saw it when it was the first time. Let me see if I can generate. Just a minute. Okay. I don't need it. I don't need this or what. Okay, escape. Control Z. Just a minute. I want to fix everything that we're having as a problem here. ARM storage. Let me see what happens. So that should generate for us. You should see storage on top, then press enter. Then now we have the name, a display name, just delete, and or we can just append and say deploy. And then you can press tab. Fantastic. Now you see that has taken us to the next property that we need to specify its value. So in this case, under the kind, we can decide we want to have a storage of version 2, have just a storage, have blob storage, have blob storage, or file storage. But like I mentioned when we are starting, we're making things very simple for us today. We're not going into the complex stuff. Complex stuff should build as we go. So we're going to leave everything as it is. So let's understand what we need to provide the resources. Now, account, the name is just the name of your storage account. The type is the resource type that you're deploying. So if we have storage, then we need a storage account. And then the API version. Now, I was here explaining the API version. API version, if you use the snippets from the ARM extension, then be sure that it will give you the exact API version. But if you're not sure, you can always check from the link I shared. That link will take you to a documentation manual for all these ARM templates and bicep. From there, you can see which is the latest API, okay? Then you can choose the said API version. Tags, you know what tags do. And then we have the location. The location, the source group. Then in that source group, you're going to check the location of that source group. And I'm going to show you how the source group is going to be specified. Then the SKU and the kind, all those you can understand once you get the Azure fundamentals. Now that we have our template, what do you need to do? Template is ready. This template won't be of use to us if you don't deploy it somewhere, okay? So the next step is for us to deploy this template. How? We're going to log into our Azure portal because I said we have various tools to use. One of them being Azure portal, another one being Azure CLI, which is a CLI tool, PowerShell, or the Cloud Shell, which is built inside Azure portal. Today, we're going to use Azure portal. So let me just go back to my browser. Let me go to my browser, and then we want to do this. Okay, so now that we are here, I'm going to open a new tab. Actually, I have this one here. This should log it into my Microsoft Azure account. So let me just log in there or in my password. Okay, let me just log in really quick. This step is now really fast. You're going to see how this will happen very fast. Let me just pass in my password because I don't remember it, but I've stored it somewhere. Okay. So this is going to be very, very easy for us to deploy. You simply take the template and then upload it. And then once we upload it, it will be validated. Once the validation is done and everything is okay, we can go ahead and deploy. Let me verify that code. Okay, so once we are here, let me just show you. This login will take me something, but I think everything will be okay. That other profile will give me problems, so let me use this. This is going to be very easy for us to use. Stay with me here. Deploying the template. See, this is what I wanted. This should log me in direct. So let me switch to my directory. Okay. Yes, so okay, just a minute, guys. Let me see if I can fix this really quick. Great. There we go. So remember, I said we should treat template as a resource. So we're going to search here for template. Just type template. So depending on your network, that should load. Not exactly what you want. We need a template. This one here, template deployment in brackets, deploy using custom template. So click on that. Once you click on that, you'll have a new window. So that is loading in the background. Then we're going to have a new window. In this new window, we're going to define, like see how we are going to provide that template using an online editor. So you see we are here. So here we want to use our own template in the editor. But we have other templates. You can get a virtual machine, Windows virtual machine, get web app. In this case, I want you to click on build your own template. Click on that. And that gives you kind of like an online editor. So once you are here, the next thing I want us to do, we'll go back to our Visual Studio Code where we were. Go that. Things take time. Just a minute. Okay, so sorry guys, you've lost my screen and we can't continue, it has crashed. So I'm very sorry for this. We have to reschedule this so that we can do the practical bit in the next event. This is very unfortunate. I've just joined from my phone. Can someone hear me? Okay, wait a minute, guys. It's back. Let's do it. Let's do it for 5 minutes. It will be done. There's no need of us postponing this. We are almost done. Just Allow me to switch back. Allow me to switch back really quick. I didn't anticipate this, so please bear with me. I'm opening my Visual Studio Code and Teams. Almost, guys, almost. Okay, let me share my screen in just a few, setting things up. Good. Oh, okay. So am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. Sure. Thank you guys for staying with me. So let's deploy this now. I've already copied. So we were here, right? Confirm to me that we were here when we crashed.
I think you haven't shared your screen.
Oh, sure. Let me share. Can you see my screen now? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So we were here, right? When I crashed.
Yeah.
So what I said, we'll go back to our Visual Studio Code and copy that template. So I've copied it so that I don't stain my laptop again. So you come here and delete this and paste your template inside here. So once you paste it inside here, you can see already our resources here. We have one resource and the name is storage account one deploy based on what we have or defined in our template. So once you have this, save. Just a minute. Where did that go? I think I need to restart this. Okay. Let me just go back and restart it. Template. Then we are deploying template deployment, custom, click on that. That will load us, give us that form. So once we're on that form, we can paste once again. Then click on build your own template in the editor, click on that. Remove all this here, paste what we had. Let me just sure it's you're having. Let me not push it so fast. It's kind of thinking still. Wait. Okay. So once we have it like this, oh my goodness, what's up? We're going to click on save. So this save will try and verify if everything we have defined is correct. If everything is correct, it will go ahead to review and create it. I don't know why we're having a lot of problems today. Let me just exit this page. Okay, it's loading. Up this now works. Let me exit that. This should work, guys. We can't leave this unfinished. We have to finish it right away. Okay. Then template. Then we wait for it to load the custom template. Click on that. Then just give it time to send the request to the service. So then click on build your own template in the editor. And then we want to replace this with our own. Then we can change the names to be sure that we have no conflicts. Let me just append it with same with here, ARM. So once we have this, all we need to do is to save. You see what happens here? Once you save, you have this form here. Now here's where you select the resource group. So I want to select by SEP, and then the region. Remember, we defined our region as the resource group.location. So our resource will go to that location that the region is assigned. So we click on it. You can leave it as East US. That is okay because this is not a production environment. And then we review and create. So this kind of a way, just validating your file if it's correct. If it's correct, well and good. This create button will be active. If there's an error, it will tell you where the error is, and then you can go change that to meet the requirements, and then you can click on create. So let's see the validation, how it happens. Validation fails. Let's see where the error is. We have one already taken, so we need to edit. So how we edit that? We can go back here, previous, and then go to edit the template here. So this is already taken. So let's give it a name like data form. A minute. Let me edit that. Yes, we're having the problem. Can you tell us to edit? Oh my goodness. Okay, just a minute. Let's see. Okay, guys, what we'll do, we can't have this right now. At this point, it can't. So I have to actually stop it here. And then in our next event, we're going to start from that very, very point where we had problems. Because at this point, we're going to take much time than expected. So please bear with me and understand. It's my machine. They said good things take time, but mine is taking forever. So you understand. So do we have any question at this point? Based on what we've discussed, basically the only part remaining here is the deployment part. We already have the template ready. The part that's remaining is using the Azure portal to deploy it to the cloud. Then we will verify if we indeed have our storage account with us. So any question from anyone? Any question? Everybody is clapping. I wish we could have deployed this resource right now, but since machine has said no, we can't actually force it. So this is some session we can even do tomorrow, just for 30 minutes or 20 minutes, then we call it done. So if there's no other question, I want to thank everyone for making this event successful and those who have stayed with me, even though I've had difficulties during the deployment part, because the tasks the softwares are very heavy for this old machine to support. So we can have a session tomorrow where we're simply going to deploy the template we already have, and then we can wait for our next session where we're going to go a step further. Yeah, so one more time, any question or any comment? Good. If there's no any comment, then I will give a chance to our MVPs and ambassadors inside here. If you have any announcement, please take it over. Brian, any announcement?
I don't have any announcements from my side. Maybe if someone has.
Dennis?
I don't think so, but just to remind our attendees, let's meet on Saturday as we move on with our TypeScript 1.1 series by one of us, Kevin, our MVP, and also the founder of Kenya Data Platform User Group. Thank you, guys.
Okay, so thank you all. So may I know, is it possible if I can host a tomorrow session, 20 minutes only to deploy this? Anyone, just by reaction so that I can see that we can have a good number tomorrow to do this. 20 minutes only, same time from 8 to 8:20. Just by reaction so that I can be sure tomorrow we can have the session. Okay, so I'm going to just schedule the session right away on the meetup group. So tomorrow, kindly join, we deploy, and then we call our event complete. So thank you all for coming. The recording will be shared once it's ready. And also remember to check the link I shared where you can go see the templates and all the resources available for you to automate using ARM and Bicep. So thank you all. See you all tomorrow on Saturday and next week. So first things tomorrow. So and have a good night ahead. And at this point, you can leave at our own pleasure. Thank you all for coming.